Continuing Chapter 6. Prayer and the Reign of Law. Comment for the week 1. One element in communion with God has so far been kept in the background of our discussion. Prayer is conversation, but generally it is not merely conversation for conversation's sake. Sometimes we talk with our friends for the sheer joy of talking, but sometimes we talk because we want something. So communion with God is commonly motivated by desire. The element of petition belongs by nature to the tendency which has led all men to pray. Now, as soon as petition enters into a man's prayers, he is likely to run against an obstacle that seems very formidable. He comes face to face with the reign of law, as modern knowledge has revealed it. In a world where there is a cause for every effect, and an effect for every cause, where each event is intermeshed with every other, and all move by inevitable consequence from what has gone before, it seems absurd to expect God to change anything in answer to our call. Or perhaps it's just our call ends up aligning with that, right? Or it aligns on a different plane. Men feel this when they consider the vastness of the universe throughout which the unbroken reign of law obtains. If the ring upon a girl's finger be taken as the orbit of the earth, 180,000 miles in diameter, the nearest fixed star is 20 miles away. The orbit of the earth 180 million miles in diameter. Okay. The nearest fixed star is 20 miles away, and the mass of the heavenly bodies scores hundreds of miles beyond that. And throughout the whole expanse, law is absolute. Or if one looks at nearby things to rest his thought from such iron regularity, he finds no comfort there. Of all snow crystals that ever fell, there have been no angles of crystallization in their filaments except 60 degrees and 120. The wind is as obedient to law as a falling stone. The temperature of the air is as much a creature of cause and effect as is the rising sun, and the rays of radium, infinitesimally minute and so swift that one could compass the earth thrice in a single second and still have time to spare, are as regular in their law-abiding ways as an eclipse. Indeed, if one look within himself and hope of evading law, he fails. The mind's operations, too, are controlled by laws, and the psychologists are plotting them with increasing accuracy. The conviction irresistibly claims our assent that nothing happens anywhere contrary to law. The conditions which cause an aurora borealis are not fully known, but no one doubts that the conditions exist, and that if they fail by the least degree, an aurora cannot be conjured up by all the prayers of all the saints on earth. Definite petition to God in such a word seems absurd. To many, even commune with God grows difficult. Communion with God grows difficult. So lost is he in the maze of law, Job's cries gain strength 1,000-fold today. Oh, that I knew where I might find him. Job 23, verse 3. As for the demand that we continue to pray without understanding self-respect, rebels. Otway's words in Vince Preserved, though written in 1682, have a contemporary ring in them. You want to lead my reason blindfold like a hampered lion, checked of his noble vigor, then, when baited, down to obedient tameness, may it couch, and show strange tricks, which you call signs of faith. In this special difficulty, men are often disappointed because the Bible does not directly help. Dr. McFadden clearly states that the truth of the matter Just as the Bible assumes the existence of God, so it also assumes the naturalness of prayer. It does not answer, and, for the most part, does not even raise the problems which bear so heavily upon educated men today. In the Bible, there is no difficulty in the way of fleece on the same night becoming both wet and dry. Judges 6, verses 37. The sun may stop or proceed. Joshua 10:13. The shadow on the sundial go forwards or backwards. Isaiah 38:8. The axe head may sink or float. 2 Kings 6:5. And the prison doors may open without human help. Acts 5:19. Like all people of the generations during which the Bible was written, the writers of Scripture, for the most part, described events in terms of miracle and not of law. Being written, that's an interesting way to phrase it, right? Because that maybe admits that the process of the books were from different generations. And we find this most of all with what's called the New Testament, that there were changes every single generation. In a time when the Jews had all decided, okay, we got this number of rows, this number of columns, and while there's a difference between the Ashkenaz and the Sephardic and the, well, what do you call the Asiatic Jew? But that other variety, right? The Semitic Jew, usually. But this biblical assumption that prayer is entirely natural, and this description of the results of prayer in terms of miracle rather increase than allay the perplexity of many Christians. This world of the Bible is not our world. They cry in doubt, show us a single place in the world in which we live where we cannot depend for certain on nature's regularity. We predict sunrise and sunset to the second, and they never fail. We plot the course of the planets, and they never are late. The achievements of our modern world rest on the discovery that we can rely on the same things happening under the same conditions, always and everywhere. When we figure strain on a bridge, we know that the laws of mechanics will not shift overnight. Indeed, the marvel of our present age is symbolized by the English astronomers going out to Africa to study an eclipse, and standing at last on the velvet beside their instruments. Now, said one, watch in hand, if we have made no mistake in our calculations, the eclipse should begin at once. On the instant the shadow of the moon pushed its edge over the rim of the sun. What is the use of praying in a world like that? Stern as fate, absolute as tyranny, merciless as death. Too vast to praise, too inexorable to propitiate. It has no ear for prayer, no heart for sympathy, no arm to save. No one needs travel far to discover men whose religious thinking has stumbled over this difficulty. It is therefore important thus early in our discussion to see clearly that natural law is not at all what superficial thinking makes it appear to be. Dealing with the reign of law is like going through the Simplon tunnel. Go a little way and one has darkness and imprisonment. Go a little further and one has light liberty and the far stretches of the Italian hills. The classic word of Bacon is nowhere more true than here. This I dare affirm in knowledge of nature, that a little natural philosophy, and the first entrance into it, doth dispose the opinion to atheism, but on the other side, much natural philosophy, and wading deep into it, will bring about men's minds to religion. Part 2. We may approach this deeper truth about natural philosophy by remarking that the man who believes in nature's inexorable regularity immune from personal control ought not to expect under ordinary circumstances to see water flow uphill. As a matter of fact, however, he can see it any day. Reservoirs are built among the mountains, or pumping stations are established, and water runs uphill and down dale with equal facility, and seeks the topmost stories of the tallest buildings. And this is the important secret there revealed. Persons cannot violate the law of gravitation, but they can use their law-abiding force of gravitation to do what, without their cooperation, never would occur. So ordinarily a heavy substance will not float upon a lighter one, but every day iron steamships plow the sea, and heavier than air machines navigate the sky. Here too is revealed the fact that persons, while They can never break nor change laws, can utilize, manipulate, and combine the forces which laws control to do what those forces by themselves would not accomplish. The insight which takes from the heart of religion all fear of the reign of law is this: personality even in ourselves, how much more in God, is the master and not merely the slave of all law-abiding forces. As Huxley put it, the organized and highly developed sciences and arts of the present day have endowed man with a command over the course of non-human nature greater than once attributed to the magicians. This truth underlies all our modern material accomplishments. If an engineer proposed to bridge a stream, who would say to him, "It is impossible. The laws of nature forbid hanging iron over air." He could answer, "I am not merely the slave of nature, but in part its master. Nature can be used as well as obeyed, and if one insisted to the contrary, claiming that natural laws are inviolable, the engineer's reply is evident. The inviolability of natural laws is the beauty of them. They are trustworthy servants. They can be depended upon. They are unwavering, yesterday, today, and forever. And if you will watch, you will see me say, to this force come, and it will come. To this force go, and it will go. And I, a person, will manipulate and utilize the law-abiding energies of nature, making infinitely varied combinations of invariable procedures until millions of men shall cross this river on my bridge." And that's really what one should do with examples. Not just that people follow you, that you set forth something that people can achieve by, right? Part 3. So important is it clearly to see the truth that personality, even in ourselves, can work the most unexpected results, not by violating laws, but by using knowledge of them, that we may well approach it from another angle. When men are dismayed by the inflexibility of law, they are thinking of cause and effect as forming a rigid system in whose established order no break can come. Now, we may not enter here into the philosophy of causation, but it is worth noting that in practical experience we seem to be dealing with two kinds of cause. When the atmospheric pressure makes the wind blow, that is one sort. When a man sails by that same wind, skillfully tacking until he reaches his destination, that is another. In one case, we have absolutely predetermined procedure. In another, we have a personal will serving a personal purpose by utilizing the predetermined procedure. These two kinds of cause seem everywhere to be at work. When the snow falls on the walk, its removal may be affected by natural causes, the sunshine or the rain, but its removal may also be affected by personal causes. A man with an ideal and a shovel may put his shovel at the service of his ideal and clear the walk. Personal causation is everywhere in evidence, and when the reign of cause and effect seems rigid and merciless, it is because we forget how pliable law-abiding forces are in the hands of personality. Strange that we should forget it. All our human achievements are illustrations of this truth. Natural causes cannot explain St. Paul's Cathedral. Gravitation never cried to his brethren, the forces of nature, "Come, let us conspire to build a temple to God." Well, Islam teaches that the whole world is a place of worship, but, you shouldn't block the roads, where you go to the bathroom, and, a few other places, right? But in general, the whole place is a place of worship, right? The cause of St. Paul's Cathedral is personality utilizing its knowledge of laws. Natural causation cannot explain the sonatas of Beethoven. Nothing could be more mathematically exact than the laws of sound vibration. But all great music bears witness to the power of personality when it uses its privilege of manipulating law-abiding sounds. Natural causation may explain the Straits of Gibraltar, but it cannot explain the Panama Canal. Personal cause alone can account for that. A man went down to Panama, where many a man had died, to split the sliding mountains and lift the eternal tide. A man stood up in Panama, and the mountains stood aside. And that Van Halen song about the car doesn't have anything to do with this, right? Or does it, right? Well, I mean, the same area in some respects. And one of the best philosophic statements of the truth was in G.H. Palmer's Problem of Freedom. The abiding forces of personality. One of the most liberating conceptions that can come to any mind is this perception that law-abiding forces can be made the servants of personal will. The only possibility of denying this truth lies in a theory of absolute determinism that makes the whole world a material machine with personality a helpless cog in the wheels. Grant, even in the least degree, what experience asserts, and the greatest philosophies confirm, the truth of individual initiative, and we have a new element in the reign of cause and effect, namely personal causation. Continually, we are projecting personal cause into the realm of natural causes, and when one deeply considers this, he sees that what we call natural cause may not be impersonal cause at all, that our limited control of universal forces may be a counterpart of God's unlimited control, then all cause would be personal, and all procedure that we call natural would be God's regular ways of acting. Neither with God nor man do cause and effect make an iron system in which personality is enslaved. Rather, they present to personality a reliable instrument through which personal freedom is continually expressed. Part 4. Many of the arguments against prayer, based on the reign of law, bear with exactly the same force against any request made of an earthly friend. God cannot answer prayer because he cannot interfere with the reign of law. Let us see. Well, set forth the law, and if we happen to fall into it, a child falls from an open window and badly hurt, calls to his father. Will the father regret his inability to help because the reign of law prevents? On the contrary, the father will set about using his knowledge of the reign of law as speedily as possible. He lifts the child from the ground, although gravitation by itself would have kept the child there. He calls up the hospital by telephone, and in that act uses a combination of natural forces put together by personal will, so wonderful that the thought of it may well make even a modern man gasp. The ambulance clangs down the street, representing a utilization of nature or knowledge of hundreds of invariable mechanical, physical, and chemical laws has been utilized. The surgeon projects personal will against the dead set and certainly fatal outcome of natural causation, and the child is saved. How many laws did that father violate? Not one, but he utilized knowledge of so many that no man can count them, and he employed that knowledge as the instrument of his love in the service of his child. Whether, therefore, we consider the ways in which men subject natural processes to their will, or the ways in which personal cause controls natural causes, are the ways in which we answer requests, not by violating laws, but by using our knowledge of them, we come to the same conclusion. Personality can control the universal forces to serve personal ends. Scientific laws are human statements and increasingly true statements of nature's invariable procedures, but the procedures are always pliable in the hands of human intelligence and will. Do we mean to say that God is less free than we are? Are we, the creatures, in so large measure masters of law-abiding forces, as is he, the Creator, a slave to them? Are the universal powers plastic and usable in our hands, and in his hands stiff and rigid? The whole analogy of human experience suggests that the world is not governed by law, that it is governed by God according to law. He providentially utilizes, manipulates, and combines his own invariable ways of acting to serve his own eternal purposes. And that's part of the thing, too. If we figure out our eternal purpose, then everything aligns. There may be a delay in, the reward or prevention or whatever, but part 5. Our fundamental fallacy about God is our thought of him as an artificer, now far off, who has left this machine of his running by its own laws, and who cannot do anything with it except by intervention. Let us banish so primitive a picture of God, so childish a conception of the universe. He is not far off. He is the indwelling presence in the world, as our life is in our bodies, controlling all. He is the immanent and eternal creator, and the laws, some known to us, some unknown, are his ways of doing things. He is not a prisoner caught in the mechanism of his own world. He is not reduced to the impotency of Louis Philippe. I reign, but I do not govern. He is free, more free than we can guess, to use the forces he has ordained. Providence is possible. A youth can deflect a brook's course from one channel to another. God can do with any life, and with the course of history, what we do with the brook. The laws are all in his leash. Says Jesus, not a sparrow shall fall on the ground without your Father. Matthew 10:29. While the Bible, therefore, does not deal with the modern problem of natural law and its reference to prayer, we still may share with the Bible that utter confidence in the power and willingness and liberty of God to help his children, which makes the Scriptures radiant with trust and hope. When the Bible says, God hath spoken once, twice, have I heard this, that power belongeth unto God, Psalm 62:11, or Jehovah is my strength and my shield, my heart hath trusted in him, and I am helped, Psalm 28:7, are to them that love God all things work together for good, Romans 8:28. It is saying nothing that the most thorough believer in the reign of law must not say too. There are many prayers that God must not answer. Why? But there are no good prayers which God cannot answer. Saying answer is only according to, it turns out the way that you want, or what's the response is. It's not quite the same thing, right? Because the air and stuff answers to your actions. And it's like, are we saying that, yeah, it's not going to answer because I'm not aware of it? He is the master of all laws, known to us and unknown. When God utilizes his knowledge of his own laws, who can say in advance what may happen? God is free so far as the mere possibilities are concerned to answer any petition whatsoever, and if a prayer is left unanswered, it is not because the reign of law prevents. It is because there are vast realms where God must not substitute our wish for his plan. Part 6. Yeah, most of these are only 5 parts, and it's like, well, if you're going to have 7 selections, why not 7, 7 comments, right? This last statement deserves emphasis. We may prefer to have the sunrise earlier, or to have a dozen colors in the spectrum, or to think without association of ideas, or to sin and not suffer, but we may as well spare our pains. God does not remake his world for the asking, not because he cannot, but because he must not. It may be convenient for us to substitute rain for sunshine or sunshine for rain, but we are likely to be vainly substituting presumption for faith when we try to control the weather. As the old rabbis put it, a mother had 2 sons, one a gardener and the other a potter. Said the gardener, "O mother, pray God for rain to water my plants." Said the potter, "O mother, pray God for sunshine to dry my pots." Now, the mother loved them equally well. Shall she pray for rain or sun? Nay, she would best leave it in the hands of God. Well, there's also praying for what's best. When entire confidence has been established, therefore, in the power and liberty of God to utilize any force at any time, a due humility will restrain us from making a presumptuous application of this truth to prayer. Within the realm of personal relationships, the effect of prayer is so clear that our faith in prayer's efficacy has assured ground in experience. But the power of prayer to affect the objective processes of nature is incapable of scientific demonstration. We never can so completely isolate an event, like a change in the weather, as to prove that nothing but our prayer could have caused it. To be sure, no man can draw a clear boundary saying, within this we may expect God to use his laws in answer to our prayers, and without we may look for nothing of the kind. Professor Bound's word is sane and helpful. To pray about everything in submission, that's what Islam means, to God's will, would be both more human and more Christian than a scrupulous limitation of our prayers to what we might think permissible subjects of petition. But it must be obvious that we should never presumptuously demand the use of natural forces in the objective world to serve our personal purpose, and then confidently expect our prayer to work the change. Before sun and rain, as Jesus said, the just and unjust seem to fare alike. Matthew 5, verse 45. Lyman Beecher's public claim that the burning of an Orthodox church was due to the special judgment of God on false doctrine was shown to be perilous as well as untrue. Within the next week, Lyman Beecher's church burned down. The forces of the external world are in the hands of God, to do with them as he wishes. But that does not necessarily mean that he must do with them as we wish. God must not surrender his sovereignty unto man. It is far better that man should learn the discipline of law than be exempt for the asking. Prayer distinctly is not a machine warranted by the theologians to make God do what his clients want. In all our praying, therefore, we need to remember the distinction, to use Trumbull's phrases, between faith and prayer and faith. Faith in prayer may be presumptuous and clamorous. It may present ultimatums to the Almighty demanding his acquiescence. It may try to make of prayer a magic demand on God, but prayer in faith acts everything in entire submission to the will of God. It desires never to force its wish on the eternal purpose, but always to align its wish with the eternal purpose. It pleads passionately for its needs, but it closes its petition as the Master did. Thy will be done. Prayer in faith rejoices in God's sovereignty, is confident that all forces are in his leash, and that to those who love him all things work together for good. Prayer thus becomes meaningful because God is free to do what he will in this world, but prayer does not on that account become presumptuous, as though God must do what we will in the world. And let us remember also that this gospel prosperity thing is not just this idea that, oh, well, if good or benefit or something happens, that proves approval. Or if harm comes, or bad, or whatever you want to call it, then, it's proof of disapproval. It doesn't quite work that way. 7. There is a realm, however, where none need be hesitant in expecting answer to prayer. Prayer is the law of personal relationships. It is important to see clearly that all laws do not apply in all realms. Gravitation, for example, is not universal. It obtains without exception in the objective physical world, but it does not range up into the personal spiritual world. We come there into a new realm where we deal with realities that cannot be caught in test tubes, measured by yardsticks, or weighed in scales. In that new realm, new laws are at work. Gravitation cannot break up into the world of spirit, although spirit can break down and use the force of gravitation. Laws are thus arranged in regimes. When one leaves the inorganic world for the organic, he leaves behind him laws that are now no longer applicable. When he leaves the world of plants for the world of men, he moves up to laws that do not concern plants but do apply to men. And in this higher realm, where men deal with one another and with God, there are conditions of communion, laws of fellowship and prayer. One cannot imagine Jesus asking for an objective change in the physical world without entire willingness to submit to a negative answer. But when he goes up into the mountain alone to commune with God, he goes with absolute assurance that the strength and peace and vision which he needs will come. And so that indicates that Jesus isn't God, and it also indicates that we too, it doesn't mean when you go on a vision quest you're going to get a vision, but you're going to get what you actually need spiritually. Or perhaps more than that, something that you can use to your benefit. Personal relationship is the unique realm of prayer. As one reads in the great prayers of the church, he sees that in this realm, supremely, the people of God have prayed with confidence, have expected answer, and have not been disappointed. Lord, what a change within us 1 short hour, spent in thy presence, will avail to make. What heavy burdens from our bosoms take, what parched grounds refresh, as with a shower. We kneel, and all around us seem to lower. We rise, and all the distant and the near stands forth in sunny outline brave and clear. We kneel, how weak; we rise, how full of power. Why, therefore, should we do ourselves this wrong, or others, that we are not always strong? That we are ever overborne with care, that we should ever weak or heartless be, anxious or troubled, when with us is prayer, and joy and strength and courage are with thee.